As we Americans approach the end of the 20th century, we seem to have lost our sense of community. That has left many of us asking the most fundamental of all ethical questions. Who are my neighbors, and what do I owe them? The moderator of this hypothetical case study is Professor Charles Ogletree.
Mr. Waddleton, Robert is a high school student about to go to college. You are a friend that he relies on when he wants to talk about things that concern him. Robert is very intelligent, but he's from a poor family. Robert just received a copy of the answers for the college entrance exam. And he received those answers because a friend of his obtained a copy illegally, sold it to some other kids, but gave Robert a copy free. He's taken the test, and now he's a little concerned about reporting the scores. As his friend and confidant, what do you say to Robert when he comes to you for advice?
I say to him that he is in a very, very difficult predicament. Obviously, he's coming to me for advice because he is conflicted about something that he has done. And I think I'd probably explore with him what he thinks ought to be done about what he has done.
Well, let's explore it.
Robert, what led you to try to get the answers before you took the test?
I've worked hard all my life, and I've always wanted to go to Harvard. And I think I deserve to go to Harvard. But other kids have an advantage over me because they can take another exam that will prepare them for this college entrance test, and it costs $500. I can't afford it. And I'm just trying to set things equal.
It certainly is dishonest. Would you not agree?
Who are you concerned about? Are you concerned about me?
I'm very concerned about you, and that is why I'm very deeply concerned about the actions that you have taken, and would like for you to think about what you can do now to rectify what you have done, which is not correct, which is unethical. I think you agree that it is unethical, but you see that the means justify the ends?
Well, no, I'm asking for advice. Dr. Galen, is Ms. Waddleton giving me sound advice?
Well, I guess I'd start out by saying that I think you want to go to Harvard too badly. And all your life you're going to find things you want too badly, and if you don't learn that you don't do certain things for things you want badly, you're going to end up doing an awful lot of bad things.
Now that hurts. I mean, what about me, our friendship and that sense of loyalty?
Well, I guess my sense of loyalty is shaped by my career as a psychiatrist, and that is that you ought to learn the truth very, very early. This has nothing to do with Harvard. This has to do with you're ready to cut corners for something you want badly. You should want nothing that badly. And as far as you're being disadvantaged, there's probably another disadvantaged kid that you're cutting out of Harvard because you cheated. You can call it anything you want, but you cheated. And you ought to face that now while you're young and you don't go to Harvard. A lot of dopes graduated from Harvard, I can tell you that. If you go to the local state school, you'll save your folks some money, and you can still end up on the Supreme Court someday.
Dr. Koo?
What you chose to do is to take a shortcut, probably an unnecessary shortcut, and you put some kind of a goal in your life so far ahead of ethics and principles and morals that it's going to plague you the rest of your life. I'm not worried about what happens this week or next month or whether you can go and talk to the dean at Harvard, but just suppose that you come to the point 4 or 5 years from now and somebody comes out and says, do you know that Robert cheated on his SATs? You can't afford that.
Well,
You've got to face it right now.
Dr. Peterson, you're the president of the superintendent of the high school. Do you think that I should have some responsibility to turn in the other 10 students who also got these answers in advance of the test?
Robert, you are a fine man for having brought this to me. I've always been proud of you, but I've never been more proud than I am now. Is there some way that we can help those other 10 become the man you can become? I don't think we ought to turn them in, but I'd be very pleased if you'd go talk to them and tell them that my door is open.
So I don't have to turn them in necessarily?
I would hope that you, with your considerable abilities and the respect they have for you, might get them willing to come and talk about it. If they won't, come on back and we'll talk later about what we ought to do after that.
Father Hare, is he going far enough with me on this? In terms of my 10 other friends? I mean,
I think what's interesting is that if you look at the two sets of moral arguments that have been made with you, they have encompassed the two major ways we think about morality. On the one hand, some arguments have been, you might call it utilitarian. They say if you don't do what's right, sooner or later you may pay for it. Another set of arguments is you ought to do what's right because of the impact it has on you as a person. So we've now brought together the two major ways that we think about right and wrong and say in this case you are bound by both. Now that's a lot to absorb for a 17-year-old. We then want to take the next step and say that ethics is never just about persons, it is always about society. I hope you come away with a sense that there is a set of social bonds that bind us together that can be injured by cheating. But I don't know that I'd place on you the obligation to solve the larger social question.
Okay. Ms. Ellaby, should I turn in the other 10 students?
No, I don't think you should turn in the other students. But I would also tell you that there is a third reason, apart from what this might do to you down the line, unless, of course, you intend to have a career in politics, in which case it's probably very common, or as history has shown it to be. Or what it might do to your soul. There is a part. That is the fact that as a society we have come to the conclusion that cheating is wrong. And you cannot give without expecting to get back what you have given. And if you are not willing to give honesty, you cannot expect to get it. You cannot expect to get it from your politicians, from your co-workers, from your family. And that alone has to make you know that what you have done is you have cheated, and you must do something about that.
Dr. Galen, is that right? Don't turn in the friends. Isn't that harmful to the community?
I think you have a point. It does seem strange for ethics to just be involved with our own personal conscience and our own personal life, since we are political creatures, as Aristotle says. You destroy the community, we'll all shrivel on the vine. So I think you sense something. I guess what most of us are saying to you is it's a big burden at 17. And the crime isn't quite that heinous a crime. There are times in which I would say, you better just turn them in. Cheating on the exams, I guess, would be the borderline, one of the borderlines. But I wouldn't put that burden on you now.
Okay. Justice Scalia, how would you advise Robert to handle this problem?
Well, first of all, Robert, I'm not at all impressed by the fact that, that you didn't have the $500. I mean...
Why not?
Well, I mean, that argument would justify your going out and stealing the $500. You could have done it that way. In fact, that probably would have been a better way to do it, because then it'd be a lot easier to get you out of this problem. You could just, you know, pay back the $500 from wherever you stole it. It's very hard to pay back the cheated exam. But you wouldn't have thought of stealing the $500, would you, Robert?
No, I don't think so.
I don't. Well, so therefore, the mere fact that you don't have the $500 and somebody else doesn't allow you to make things even, right?
Does that mean that life is just, you play the cards you dealt?
Yeah. There are other people who have the $5,000 but don't have the brains. Now, are they as justified as in cheating as you are? They could make the same argument. Look at these people, you know, I was born with money, but they were born with brains. I got to even things up. The way I'll do it is I'll cheat in the exam. I mean, you know, we do not all start life on an even playing field. But the rules are that we all play it by the rules of honesty and ethics. Now, what you do about the other 10, I was asking myself, I don't think you should turn them in. I don't know why. I think I have an obligation to rectify a discernible deprivation of something, taking from someone else of something that person was entitled to. I don't know whom you identify as the victim of the cheating.
Father Hare, is this advice I'm getting from Justice Scalia a distinction without a difference?
No, I think that in the beginning of the conversation you were trying to deal with the lottery of life by breaking the rules. I think there's a lottery of life that is not fair. We then try and set up rules of fairness to govern relationships within a lottery that's unfair. Part of what people have been saying is that it's an enormously valuable lesson for you to learn to play by the rules within an unfair lottery.
Justice Scalia, you're my father. And I come to you to have this conversation.
Once again, I don't know whom you recompense. There's no identifiable victim that I can tell you to go and make amends to.
Is that what you'd advise me?
I'd advise you to retake the exam and use your second score in future applications. Now, that may mean you'll have to be out of college for half a year when you'd rather be there, but that's the price of your folly.
Well, Dad, as you said, I'm getting older and I should be more responsible. I'm going to disregard that advice. I'm going to use the scores. And this is one mistake I've made, and I'm aware of it, and I'm working my way through it. But
They're giving you a scholarship, are they?
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
You mean this check is no good? Are you going to turn me in?
It's a hard question, isn't it?
Yes, Dad.
You know, I think I will, but I'm doing it more for your own good.
Well,
I think I have some not just somehow goes beyond my normal obligation to the rest of the society. I ought to see that you get what you deserve for being a bad person.
Is there something immoral about what I'm doing?
Oh, of course there is. Of course there is. You're lying.
And I came to you with the sense that you might understand.
I do understand. I also assume you came to me with the thinking that I'd do what's best for you. I assume that's why you came to me rather than to some stranger. And I, as your father, am confident that I am doing what's best for you by holding over your head the threat that if you don't do what's right, I'll do it for you.
I've never done anything like this before. Won't you allow me one indiscretion in life? Just once, father to son.
But I've allowed you the indiscretion. I'm not going to report you to the police. For all I know, it may violate some theft by fraud. Who knows? I'm not going that far. I am just refusing to allow you to profit from.
We could have a family discussion about this and decide that maybe you should not go to Harvard on these test results and that you should sit out a semester and retake the test as a condition, because, you know, there are consequences to breaking the moral or the ethical code.
Well, I think I'm going to follow this advice. In fact, Robert follows the advice. He does not use the scores. He takes the test again and he gets into Harvard. In fact, he grows up. He's married. He marries Carol. They have a good relationship. Miss Goodman, you are a good friend of Robert. In fact, he comes to you a lot for advice. You happen to know that Robert is having an affair. Will you talk to Robert?
Sure, I would.
What would you say to it?
Depending how obvious it was, perhaps we worked together. And I'd say, you know, Robert, a lot of people at the office are noticing your friendship with Deneen.
Well, Ellen, I'm not sure that's any of your business.
Okay. I stopped at that point. I mean, I don't think I might not have even put it that forthrightly.
Well, how could you not bring it up?
Well, I already said I would bring it up loosely, but if he said to me, back off, I'd probably back off.
Ms. Smith?
There's always another day.